And here it is, folks, the fourth Grand Prix Series tournament for the candidates final to play Magnus Carlsen for the World Championship. My buddy from the U.S., Carl Nakamura, is in it. Don't miss any of the action. This is going to be a great tournament. Here is the lineup, folks, for the fourth in a series of FIDE Grand Prix tournaments. This one being played in Tomashevsky from May 14th through the 26th. Look at this lineup. Fabiano Caruana, rated over 2,800, representing Italy, soon to represent the United States. And I'll make a point here this fall, I guess, he can change over to the U.S. He has dual citizenship. Out of the top 10 players in the world now, America represents 3 of them, since Wesley So from the Philippines switches federation to the U.S. Number 2, my buddy, Carl Nakamura. Almost 2,800. He went over the 2,800 mark about a month and a half ago. Great player. I expect a lot of good things from a Carl. His chance to get in the candidates final. Huge deal. Third, Alexander Grishuk. I think incredibly underrated. You don't hear a lot about Alexander, but I'll tell you, he's a top player. Young Anish Giri from the Netherlands. Another one to watch out for. Maxime Vacher-Lagrave from France. Another great player. Sergei Karyakin, oh my God, another great player. Tomashevsky, who I believe is leading in points so far in the Grand Prix Series, another great player. Boris Gelfand, older but still got the guns. World Championship challenger against Vishy Anand, lost in a tiebreak. Yakovenko, another great player. Peter's Fiddler, really interesting guy, another great player. We'll see which Peter shows up. If the good Peter shows up, he can be really tough. A guy I like personally, Leonel Dominguez from Cuba, another great player. When he's playing on, he's on. And a really exciting player, Jobava from Georgia. You never know what the hell Jobava is going to do. The games are always fun to watch. And there's the lineup, folks, of the final Grand Prix tournament to determine the candidates to be in the final tournament to play for the World Championship. Don't miss any of the action. This is going to be great. Hi folks, John Cordisco back again. Round 3 of the fourth in a series of tournaments in the FIDE Grand Prix Series, leading up to the candidates final to challenge Magnus Carlsen for the World Championship. This is a hell of a game between Fabiano Caruana, Italian-American, and soon I'm just going to say American, against Tomashevsky from Russia. Tomashevsky hasn't lost a game in any of the Grand Prix Series tournaments he's played in. I want to make one point about Fabiano Caruana when I say just an American. This fall, he'll change his federation from Italy to the United States. He has dual citizenship now, and I want to make this point. The upcoming Olympiad, we're going to have between Wesley So, Carl Nakamura, and Fabiano Caruana, 3 out of the top 10 players in the world. I think there's an excellent chance the United States can win the gold medal in the next Olympiad. Anyway, let's get to it. Caruana is white. Tomashevsky is black. It's going to be a Slav. Let's go through the opening here. Pretty typical Slav stuff. A lot of pawn moves at the beginning for black. See, I've seen this a million times. G4. Now, that's an interesting move. It can't be taken, of course. We all know that. You can go through and figure it out yourself. The knight can't take the pawn on G4. Knight to A6. Give you an idea. If knight had taken, just to show, to illustrate, rook to G1, H3, or excuse me, F5, H3, and black's got to move the knight, and the pawn falls on G7. Just to think I wasn't just making up that you can't take it. G5, knight D7. If you had gone H5 instead, bishop goes to E5, castles, rook to G1, and even though the computer only shows a small advantage for white, I like white here a lot. It's a lot easier to play. After knight to D7, H4, reinforce the pawn. Knight to b4. Now, I mean, black's pretty cramped here. I mean, look at this bishop on c8. He's got nowhere to go. And where's this knight going to go to let him out? He's going to have to go here, then bishop here, biting on these pawns. I just don't like the setup. Bishop e2, b6, h5. Here come the pawns. Bishop b7. Okay. Little cramp for black. I mean, what's he going to do? He's just going to have to wait and see what black does. And I hate that when I'm playing, is when you're always responding to what your opponent does rather than have a plan for yourself. C takes, E takes, which I thought was interesting. I thought for sure you'd take with the C pawn to open up the C file. Computer likes E takes as well, knight takes, and the last move is C takes. So that's why these guys are playing the Grand Prix and I'm not. E takes, queen to D2, knight to F8 is the computer suggestion. Castles, pretty close. Top two moves. Rook G8. You really don't want to castle on that side anyway. Go Rook G8. He decides to go F5, and that move the computer didn't like at all. To give you an idea, it's about 2/3 of a pawn advantage, half a pawn advantage. After F5, it's climbing up to almost a pawn and a half. If you had gone knight to F8, the white just would have castled long. And that would have been a lot more fun, kind of like a Sicilian setup, where you're castling on opposite sides. But G takes, bishop takes, and white goes H6. Boy, I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to be black here, but G6, E4, trying to open it up. D takes, knight takes. White castle, or excuse me, black castles and white castles long. I like white's position a lot here, to tell you the truth. Yeah, the pawn on h6 is going to be tough to defend, but it's sitting right on top of black's king. So I like white so far. The computer only shows it about 2/3 of a pawn advantage. Pretty much we're on move 19 now. So let's take a pause here and look at what's going on. I think white sits very well. It's going to be a long time for black's queenside pawns to march down and open up the king side for white. I should say where the king is castled on the queen side for white. Well, black's not totally out of it. I mean, this knight's in a good spot on the king. This bishop is good. This file might be a problem for white later. We'll have to see. This pawn moves. This bishop is pretty good. So it's not all doom and gloom, and the computer shows that out. It's about a half a pawn advantage for white. But I still like white a lot. Knight to D5. That's a good spot for that knight. There isn't any white pawns on the C or E file to chase them off. Bishop G3. He wants the dart-squared bishop. Doesn't want to trade it off. Bishop A6. Pretty much forcing that trade. Rook takes. He took it. That rook's in a weird spot now, so that was a pretty good trade. Rook D1. Rook goes back, so that loses a tempo, and he takes advantage of that losing a tempo by going king to B1, taking the king off the open or semi-open C file. Bishop E7. Queen to D3. Really look at this. Black isn't really so bad. It just looks scarier than it really is. Rook to F5. Now, computer liked the move I was thinking of, knight on 7 to F6. Then after this knight moves, knight to B4, queen to E3. I like that a little better for black, honestly. This king feels a little more secure, but he went rook to F5 instead. After knight to E5, queen to C8, knight goes back to knight goes to C3. Now this is where I think Tomashevsky miscues, which is extremely not like him at all. Like I said, he hasn't lost a game in any of the Grand Prix series. he's played in. I believe he's #1 in the point standings. So he'll get in the candidates final. Computer likes knight takes e5 for black. Get rid of that knight. But he decides to go knight takes c3 instead, which I think is a very human move. Very human move. According to the computer, what he should have done was knight takes, after d takes, queen to e6, knight takes, queen takes, pawn takes, rook to e8. That's the line the computer liked. Granted, black's a pawn down, but I think the danger to his king is past. But after knight takes c3, queen takes instead. If pawn had taken, knight takes c5, rook takes, bishop takes, queen to e6, with a tiny advantage for black. Look at that perpetual here, chasing the king out. After queen takes, knight takes, now the in-between move. Queen to b3 check. If rook had taken, rook takes, bishop takes, queen to e6, we go back to that again. So queen to b3 check was the right move. Rook goes back to f7. Now pawn takes. A lot different. And Fabiano's looking pretty good here. Queen to f5. King to a2. Now around move 30, I'm not sure if Tomashevsky was in time trouble or not. Queen to g4 is the computer suggested move. He really miscues and goes bishop to b4, which is a very natural move, and it's a blunder. After queen to g4, e6, rook to f3, black might survive. But after bishop, e6, and it's basically over now for black. He's almost 4 points down. He's got to move the rook to e7. Bishop goes there, moves the rook back. e7, check. Queen has to block. Rook to e6. Nice. Beautiful stuff. b5 just ignores it. Rook to g1 is a computer move. Rook d7. He goes rook to d8. Not the precise move. Instead of rook to d8, computer liked a lot rook to g1. And it gives the following a variation. Bishop takes, rook takes, queen takes check, king takes, pawn takes, king takes, rook to d8. It's up a full rook. And we can go through the rest of the scenario, but you get the idea. After rook to d8, like I said, it wasn't the most precise move, but it's good enough. Pawn takes, queen just goes to e3. White's king is in no danger at all. Bishop takes, rook takes, bishop takes. He's got a piece for 2 pawns now. Rook to e8. King to a1, king to a3, king to b1. It's all pretty much the same. He decides to go to a1, a3, b takes, queen to f5. Rook to e5 is a good move. Queen to d4. He decides to go queen to c3 instead. Threatening mate. And that's where Tomashevsky says that's enough. No mas. And resigns. That's the first game Tomashevsky has lost in this Grand Prix series, in any of the series. And this is the 4th series. Now, I know he didn't play in all 4, but I think this is his 3rd series out of the 4. And this is the first game that he's lost. Give you an idea. After queen to f7, rook takes, queen takes, rook to e6. I mean, you're getting killed here. Absolutely getting killed. What's he going to do? He's got to give up the queen. It's just horrible stuff. No matter where he moves the queen, rook takes, rook check, queen takes, queen mates. So he's got to give up the queen. And that's the way it is. Anyway, folks, that's one of the games from round 3 of the 4th in a Grand Prix series of tournaments to determine the challengers to play Magnus Carlsen for the World Championship. I hope you enjoyed it. And I want you to remember, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.